I believe we are live now. As you can see on the screen too, it shows live on YouTube, and I'll just check if we are live on WAF TV as well. I'll just do a refresh. Yes, I think, yes.
We begin now?
So, well, we have 2 minutes to go. So,
2 minutes to go.
Yes, so we are live on WAF TV as well. That's fantastic. That's beautiful. All right. So, Jerry sir, if any questions come up on WAF TV or YouTube, you can just let us know. All right, just let us know so that we don't miss out on any questions from the WAF community.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
So another minute to go before we begin the conversation.
Like a rocket taking off. Countdown begins.
Absolutely, the rocket of WAF Gurus Live episode 22. You know that's how it is. We started this last year, I think on 24th of March or so, and in no time it crossed 1 million views. People were at home. I think a lot of counseling, a lot of inputs they got sitting at home. It was a super hit within 4 months itself. And now when we do it, we never could imagine that a B2B platform could cross 1 million views, of a program. It's really unbelievable. 100,000 views every episode. It's fantastic, It shows the love people have for WAF. We really feel thankful and humbled for that, quite frankly.
It's 5 o'clock.
Kiran ma'am, all yours.
Good evening, friends, and a warm welcome to the WAF Gurus live episode 22, powered by One Moto India. Today, we shall be discussing the issue of electrifying two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and logistics, opportunities and caveats. And at this point, I'd like to request the WAF team to share the program details, please.
Yes, Kiran ma'am, is it visible?
Yes, it is. All right. You are watching the WAF Gurus Live 22, part of the WAF Gurus Live series, which was started last year in the very first week of the lockdown itself, which was the month of March. And by August 2020, we had more than 1 million views of WAF Gurus Live. This episode, powered by One Moto India, is happening at a time when life is bouncing back to normal after the lockdown, and business prospects seem to be looking up. Staff has resumed work, with, of course, maintaining the COVID-appropriate behavior, maintaining the complete protocol. And the topic I've mentioned before is electrifying two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and logistics, opportunities and caveats. And to discuss this whole issue, we have an impressive lineup of speakers. Mr. Vivekananda Halakeri, CEO and co-founder Bounce. Bounce, which was earlier called Metro Bikes, the utility arm of Wicked Ride, focuses on solving the commute problems. Bounce has become synonymous with smart mobility since it was started in April 2014. It's a dockless scooter sharing solution which enables commuters to pick up a scooter from anywhere and drop off at any authorized legal public parking. He has come up with an in-house invention which enables keyless entry with an aim to decongest the roads by encouraging commuters to use mass rapid and public transport for their longest journey, and 4 bounds for first mile, last mile, and intermediate commute. Then our next speaker will be Shailesh Upreti, who's the chairman of IM3NY and president C4V, an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and former group member of Professor Stan Whittingham, Nobel laureate and the inventor of Li-ion battery. With over 20 years of experience in developing strategies to advance technologies, His findings have been published in more than 70 peer-reviewed international journals, several newspaper articles, together with more than 6 patents granted in the United States and their equivalents in 30-plus countries. He's worked extensively in developing new technologies for the Li-ion battery supply chain, and has worked closely with the United States National Labs, US Department of Defense Labs, OEMs, battery materials manufacturers, mining companies, downstream processor and cell battery manufacturers, including publicly listed companies and investment groups. He's also been a highly valued member of Energy Frontier Research Center, an initiative of the US Department of Energy. Dr. Opportunites has secured over $500 million investments for various projects in lithium-ion battery space, and currently he's the CEO of C4V and chairman for Imperium 3, that is building 2 gigafactories in USA and Australia, respectively. Third is Mohammad Muzammil Riaz, promoter and partner of One Moto India. He's been involved with the tech sustainability industry for the past 24 years in extensive arena covering disruptive technologies being his core expertise. He's the founder of Center Systems Group, a disruptive technology firm headquartered in Dubai, UAE, with branches in India, Australia, Kingdom of South Africa, and Bahrain, and has clients based on both government and private sectors. He has proven expertise in leading and transforming programs in technology-led projects around the world. With his complete focus now on the EV bandwagon, his goals are centered on revolutionizing and the sustainability sector by integrating EV with IoT. He's now a part of the EV revolution by heading One Moto India as its partner and promoter. One Moto India is a British brand of smart EV vehicles that has recently landed on Indian shores. With a plan to dominate the way the techno-mobility industry, One Moto has created a range of avant-garde vehicles for both the retail and corporate sector that can be integrated with smart devices for its tech-savvy customer. In a short span of time, Muzammil has led One Moto towards a stable path, attracting investors and dealers, and established it as a competition in the Indian market. Fourth speaker is going to be Shrija Kumar Nair, who's currently heading Charging Solutions and Power Electronics at Mahindra Electric, who has over 2 decades of experience in various power electronic product developments for lighting electronics, UPS, motor controllers, and EVs. He holds a master's degree in power electronics from IIT Powai, Bombay, and holds around 15 patents in several publications in the related fields. Currently heads Park Bay charging standardization in the country and represented the country in IECTC 69. Fifth speaker is going to be Dr. Dev Mukherjee, who's been working in the automotive industry in India for the past 35 years and has handled CEO level position for more than 10 years for Japanese and other MNCs in India. He has been instrumental in bringing several foreign joint venture partners and set up successful projects in India. In 2018, he merged his companies with Angelian Omega, an international business group, into automotive and infrastructure businesses in India. And he's on the board of the group as managing director. He started a company, Omega Psyche Mobility Private Limited, to manufacture electric vehicles in India's completely developed in-house with indigenous battery and powertrain technology. He's been on the roll of Government of India, Ministry of Industries, MSME, as a consultant for promotion of several government schemes for artisans from the year 2016 to 2019. And then, of course, the man behind the whole show, Anuj Guglani, who's the founder and CEO at World Auto Forum, which connects the auto and mobility industry in 125 countries. He's also worked with Honda Cars and General Motors. Last year, he launched WAF Ventures, the global investment and advisory arm of WAF, where they work with startups, investors, VC and PE firms around the world. A graduate in engineering, he did his MBA from IIT Delhi and studied law at the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. And now, At this point, let me introduce you to the annual OEM Gold Partners. Morris Garages, MG, an iconic British car brand since 1924, taken the Indian market by storm, known for their four pillars: innovation, diversity, communities, and experiences. A third of their workforce constitutes women, which they plan to take to 50%. Volkswagen, a brand that is synonymous to German engineering, build quality and safety and fun to drive experiences. One of the biggest car makers in the world, with 120 plus production facilities and serving more than 150 countries. And our annual gold partner, Gallup's Motor, one of the leading automotive retail chains at India, known for their class-leading professional customer service and loyalty, representing several leading auto brands like Hyundai, BMW, Mahindra, Bajaj KTM, Tata Motors, CVBU, and more. Once a Gallup's customer, always a Gallup's customer. One Moto India, leading premium British EV brand, all set to take India by storm. Their products are a head turner. They are high on design, performance, and build quality. Annual partners, Focus Engineering India and Focus Technologies Dubai, that offers services like auditing, training, mentoring, consulting, data analysis, market research, business ideas in the field of automotive industry worldwide. MotorUncle.com, a web app for the confused car buyer and the hassled car service customer. MotorUncle.com offers report cards of cars based on top experts and actual user ratings. Our media partners, Patriot, a newspaper with a fine lineage, started more than 6 decades back by Bharat Ratna Aruna Asif Ali ji. The newspaper is known for their unbiased and engaging editorials. WAF TV, the broadcasting arm of World Auto Forum, the very place where you're watching this program live. WAF TV hosts hundreds of videos of top industry thought leaders to empower you with knowledge and mentoring. WAF TV is just a Google away. ExpoSim, which is the virtual platform for conferences, exhibitions, expos. It can be set up quickly, works in DIY format, doesn't need an app to access, and is device agnostic. Over to you, Anuj.
Thanks a ton, Kiran ma'am. And that was very a long round of introductions, but they are important because we need to know our speakers. We need to know the men who are powering this session of WAF Gurus Live. And of course, we need everyone to know our great annual partners too. We are very, very selective who partners World Auto Forum. The best of the best in automotive and media partners World Auto Forum. And by the way, before I forget, all the learnings, all the key points of today's discussion shall get a full page feature in the Patriot newspaper as well. And that all would be done by Kiran ma'am. Okay, so quickly, I'll just show the points that have gone on email, on social media, everywhere. These are the points for our discussion for today. So, time and again, it has been said that the two-wheeler, three-wheeler and logistics are the low-hanging fruits for electrification. And of course, these are some irrefutable facts that two-wheeler vehicles account for 2/3 of the petrol consumption in our country. Three-wheeler vehicles can carry passengers and have been doing that for several decades now. Three-wheeler goods carriers can easily maneuver the tight spaces in the industrial alleys and the industrial areas, and most of them are carrying sub 1-ton load, which is ubiquitous in the MSME sector. Then e-rickshaw, the formidable growth story in India. We sell more e-rickshaws in India than e-cars get sold in China. People say, hey, that was because the government did not interfere, hence there was a revolution. But how can we silence the naysayers and actually, with the government, with the stakeholders, with the industry, with the consumer, have a bigger growth story than the e-rickshaw for electric mobility right in India? We're seeing a lot of policymakers put a lot of thrust on electrification. In fact, we had also partnered and helped Niti Aayog and DST for the industry outreach for the program that they're running on standardization of battery and the connectors. Well, the fact of the matter is the electric two-wheeler vehicles are yet to get common. So what are the impediments to the growth and the EV revolution? We've seen the dialogue on standardization. What are the innovations that we shall see in logistics? India's MSME preference is sub 1 ton. It has been there. The logistics cargo auto has been there for decades. would we still continue with its e-avatar, or would we have a different, more innovative solution for logistics in India for electric vehicles? What are the key drivers for two-wheeler electric vehicle growth? Just like a smartphone with the data and GPS gave birth to Uber, what is the sweet spot for the EV revolution? Would the e-com company like Zomato, Amazon, JioMart really come out with the electrification targets, or is it just a fad? What is the real thing? What are the expectations of the industry from the government for policy and subsidies, and how viable can an EV mobility business be without the subsidy? The lucky 13th question, most hard-hitting one. So with that, I'll just stop sharing the screen and let's get right into the conversation. If we can begin with Shailesh. Shailesh has joined us from the US. So thanks a ton, Shailesh, for joining at a little odd hour. We really appreciate that. So you've recently signed the MOU with the governments, state governments in India. You hold so many patents on battery technology. How do you see the EV revolution shaping up in India for two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and logistics?
Yeah, thanks, Anush. Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me in the show. Really amazing show, and you have wonderful speakers today. So primarily, I'm not really expert in two-wheeler, three-wheeler, but our strength, C4V, comes from the value chain that really drive the core of the technology, right? And that's the battery, we believe. Of course, not only the performance, but the cost aspects of the battery are very, very important in any electric vehicle. So for the two-wheeler and three-wheeler market, they're equally important. The design aspect, the safety, and obviously the range that batteries can deliver are very, very important. And that, as you rightly mentioned, with such an important component, there are various business models and creative ways to launch products, and is already been seen, whether it's developing a fast charge battery or swapping the battery as it gets discharged, or embedded battery, and different shapes and designs. So I think from the ecosystem perspective, from product adoption perspective, we believe the domestic manufacturing is very, very important. There are a lot of components that go in a battery, and particularly the cell, lithium-ion cell, has many chemicals, and a lot of these chemicals are fine chemicals. They are not commodity and available in the open market. And when we deal with such complex things, it takes decades to develop the whole ecosystem. End to end, it takes probably 2 decades to develop. So if we start now in India, unfortunately, we don't have any cell manufacturing happening today, right? So even if we start today, it will take us probably 15-20 years to go end to end. And what that means is a perfect mine that is used in getting the raw material and already being used in a commercial vehicle on the road. The whole qualification process and the development plan and the investment that go into this takes a long time. Now, how we squeeze that 20-year to 10-year or 15-year going to be one of the key criteria, I believe. And the FAME 2, as well as the PLI scheme from the Indian government, definitely going to catalyze that activity. So overall, I think, I'm probably giving a generic answer for the EV market, but that is pretty much applicable to two-wheeler, three-wheeler, as well as logistic market. The cost is going to be the key driver, and you can't really bring the cost down without having these key components and then eventually battery manufactured in India. So that's my high level 30,000 feet overview, how I feel, but I'll be, I'm sure you have more expert than me to talk about the vehicle itself. So I'll leave it to them to comment. But one thing definitely happening, Anuj, is, while this whole new industry is evolving and also motivating people, and many entrepreneurs have started developing product, there are certain things that are happening, which I'm sure Dr. Dev will talk about, is the quality control. Today there is no mechanism to really do a quality control, and human life is involved in developing these products, and these products need to be adopted by mass. We can't really just have mechanism where we buy no filtered or cheaper batteries and then end up having or cheaper components like cell and then end up having a battery that really creates issues down the line. So I think what is very important, in addition to while the domestic manufacturing is developing, is to have a criteria, or maybe government can play a key role in how these batteries be qualified and how the standard will exist. Because when it comes to low speed vehicles, probably the standard regulations are not stringent, but these batteries going to be, I mean, and that probably was true for combustion engines. But when it comes to batteries, I think even small battery could, you saw, like, even Samsung battery, which is very tiny battery in a cell phone, created havoc across the globe. You can't, it will be announced in every airplane, blah blah. So what I'm trying to say is, while the domestic industry is setting up, I think there has to be some policy, there has to be some regulation, but more than that, I think entrepreneurs really need to pay close attention to the safety aspect of the vehicle, which I'm sure expert will talk about, and battery going to play a key role in that. So I'll stop there and hand it over to you back.
I totally agree with you over there, Shailesh. So a small Samsung battery could create an havoc. Just imagine if the entire airplane was running on some battery, flying on some battery, what havoc can that create possibly in the future? So as you mentioned, Dr. Dev's name, so getting him right in the conversation. So as Shailesh mentioned, the 30,000 feet view on battery cells, and he's an expert on batteries. So Dr. Dev, when it comes to actual, implementation, actual installation on the vehicle and the vehicle running on ground, what are the challenges that, are being faced right now? What, according to you, are the quick fixes and the long-term strategy for two-wheeler, three-wheeler and logistics?
Yeah, Anuj, thank you very much. And, thanks for having me in the panel. You see, first of all, it is a nascent industry, even globally and also in India. And there are factors which are driving this change. Primarily, government is the big factor, the various incentives, subsidies, PLI, etc., both on the supply side and incentivizing the demand as well, which is the good thing. Probably government is looking at doing something like what they did in solar. If you go back 20 years, the solar installations used to cost something like 20 crores per megawatt, and tariff was 17, 18 rupees. And now it has come to, 1/5 of that. So it has become very, easily available, accessible, and also cost competitive. Probably government is looking at doing something similar, but we have to be very careful on the the whole technology aspect, and that is what I take this discussion forward where Shailesh mentioned. You see, safety is one primary aspect. This is a high voltage system and a complicated system, unlike the normal lead acid battery. And people here, particularly in three-wheelers, whether passenger or cargo, the user, the drivers, etc., have a habit of putting some bulb or an extra horn or extra some jugaad in the vehicle. So that's very dangerous for a electric vehicle which is running at 48 volt and maybe 10-20 kilowatt hour battery pack. So those are the things. So what I'm coming back to is, as an OEM, we have to set up the full technology envelope where we start designing the vehicles for the EV. Today, what is happening is EV in the early, of course, these are early days, you have the three-wheeler, you take out the engine and the gearbox, you put back the battery and the motor, and it becomes an EV. So that is not the right way. The vehicle has to be designed around the battery. It has to be designed around the powertrain and the whole electronics and power electronics, etc. Around that, the vehicle needs to be designed. So that is where I think the whole industry has to come up with the innovative solution, particularly in three-wheeler, because three-wheeler is largely an Indian vehicle. We manufacture close to about 1 million of them in a year, and we also export quite a lot. So that's a huge market, and it will remain, looking at the Indian landscape of rural, semi-rural, etc. So the impediments to me are today on the supply side are majorly the battery and the powertrain. We need very strong technology battery players like C4B. They're coming with their technology of solid state and other, innovative battery solutions. And on the the powertrain side, we need to really focus on coming up with the efficient motors. It's not that you just pick up a motor off the shelf and put it in the vehicle. Again, the whole R&D has to be done. The whole designing has to be done to suit a particular form factor, whether it is a two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or a four-wheeler. So this is where I think the whole innovation or engineering or technology is needed for the OEMs. I do see going forward, a lot of the OEMs will probably do battery and powertrain in-house, because that is where the core technology lies once the traditional IC engine and powertrain, the gearbox is out. So that is where I think we will see next 2 to 3 years. I do see that particularly on the battery side, the charge density, charging time, and battery life, and of course cost. These are the four, and safety. These are the 5 areas where we are going to see large scale, developments, and a lot of these pain points will be taken care of. Government is pushing. There is a PLI scheme, and our friend Sailesh and his company are part of it. So we have to see how it pans out. And I would see more, I would like to see more players coming into it, so that the scale comes and we have a very robust supply chain of raw materials, then processing, packaging, testing, validation, etc. in the country. So this is where, today we have a major sort of bottleneck to get the right battery suppliers and more, innovators or technology companies in the doing the powertrain. And on the demand side, the major pain point is of course, the financing. This is where I think the government again has to play a role. Incentivizing on the FAME2, etc. is okay, but the finance community, the banks, the lenders, the other financial institutions, they will have to come up, and unless they come in, it is very difficult to get the scale, particularly in commercial vehicle segment, where almost 95% of the vehicles in India are sold through financing. So that's a very big, piece of the whole jigsaw that is currently missing. So this is where I think we need to really focus on, and the industry has to work together. See, this is a game of various stakeholders. All the stakeholders have to come together. If we are looking at the massive or the rapid, electrification that government is looking at, or they have the vision of something like 80% of vehicles should be electrified by 2030, which is just around the corner. So I do, I don't know whether it will be 80% or 50%, but a serious and a significant changeover like this needs the stakeholders to come together: the battery makers, powertrain maker, vehicle makers, the grid energy suppliers, government, and financial institutions. I think we'll have to all come together and create this whole ecosystem to get to the scale that the policymakers have in mind. So with that, I leave the thoughts to my friends in the panel. And
Thanks a ton, Dr. Dev. I think you gave a very good ringside view of the real story at the ground level. What are the challenges, how the stakeholders need to come together. And one very interesting part was, as Dr. Mukherjee mentioned, that, it's very easy to take out the engine and put a motor, a battery, a powertrain, and just retrofit it. But an electric vehicle possibly somewhere needs a design, right? Grounds up design, And of course, who can we have better today on the panel than Mr. Nair, who has been working on charging solutions, on power electronics, which form the heart of any electric vehicle. As starting from several decades back, even till now, so many car makers, OEM used to feel very proud that, we have possibly the most efficient engine. We have the highest performing engine, companies like Honda, Toyota, they take so much pride in their engines, Renault, But now when the things are turning, it comes down to your battery or your BMS or how efficient your motors are. So getting Mr. Nair in this conversation, how is the industry, first consumer would come later. How is the industry waking up to the fact that engines are going to be out very soon, and it's going to be all about your battery, your BMS, your power electronics? So, Mr. Nair, your thoughts on that, especially when you are working in a company which has been, the forerunner, which has been at the front end of electric mobility in India. Mr. Nair.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anand. Coming to first, let's start with the benefit which the EVs are providing as on today. So as on today, if a customer runs a IC engine, especially a three-wheeler passenger driver who runs his own vehicle, with the current petrol charges, he spends around 5 to 6 rupees per kilometer to earn say 15 rupees on that. So now, if the utilization factor is say 80%, we are saying that 15 rupees is only around say 12 rupees, right? So he's spending straight away 6 rupees for earning 12 rupees right now. So now coming to the fuel, which is electricity and being stored in the battery, you see just the running difference is almost negligible, because you are running on 70 paisa or 80 paisa for per kilometer for that. So we have seen that daily a vehicle gets run for around 200 kilometers. Is earning quite a decent income with electric vehicle. So he is earning much more than what he is getting financed to, in the from a financial. So it is making life better. That is what our experience is by launching Trio and Trio Cargo and other platforms, which we are pretty much proud of, that we are changing lives there. Now, coming to the components for the same, so we have most of them in-house design, the DC-DC which is going in, the battery box which is going in. So only the cells and its material is actually what is coming from outside. The rest all are all what you see in the Trio or our three-wheelers are in-house manufactured. So we are progressing in that direction, and most of the items which you see in our three-wheelers are made in India. So now coming to the government policies and subsidies. So even right now, the break even is always there, even without without government subsidies, especially in 2 and 3 wheelers. The government subsidies, I believe, is not necessary. Only the policy clarity is what is necessary. And in that direction, already Niti Aayog has published some handbooks and also a 17017 series of standards to bring clarity on what is required in this direction. So I think we are all set to go. And also there is a 3,000 rupees charge point which can be installed across a normal power supply, which is where the 16 amps plug is available, is also introduced, and how a communication and backend, leveraging the mobile connectivity to get the backend connectivity and cloud connectivity, everything is published and studied by ARAI, and it's being published. So we are all set to go in this domain, and we are catching up, and that's what we are really up to, changing lives of the people in this domain without too much of intervention from the government, is what my perspective is. I would now like to hear from the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Well, that's very nice, Mr. Nair. Being a tech wizard, you chose to speak more on the difference and the impact that electric mobility has, on the driver, his or her family, and their quality of life. I think that's fantastic, and it's very nice to know that you're saying that we don't really need subsidy for two-wheeler, three-wheeler, for them to be viable. I think that can really go a long way, because as even the government is saying that two-wheeler, three-wheeler logistics and the public transportation are the low-hanging fruits, and all the policymakers are towards these role holders. So switching gears and getting Vivek in the conversation. So Vivekananda, who's the CEO and co-founder of Bounce, I think he has been one of the pioneers of two-wheeler shared mobility in the country. And so Vivek, would love to hear your experiments with electric mobility and what have been your learnings and what you feel should be the action plan for the stakeholders to move forward in this regard.
Yeah. Thanks, Anuj. So Anuj, for us, when we talk about scooter sharing, right, what becomes super important is what is the cost of running the scooter sharing solution, and apart from this, how easy is it to control the scooter remotely? So as you know, we have keyless scooters which can be picked up anywhere and dropped anywhere, etc. So we don't bring it back to any parking location of our own or anything of that sort. And we believe that sharing is one of the crucial ways of sustainable way of making mobility happen as compared to private ownership. While doing this, that's how we started thinking about electric to both make economic sense of in terms of unit economics, and also to see how do we make it really scalable, because electric vehicles are more controllable as compared to petrol scooters. That's how our journey started. And as you know, not many options in India when it comes to two-wheelers. Back in the days when we started talking to most of the partners across the globe, including the Googles of the world, NIUs of the world, trying to get them to India. But not many were interested, or they had their own reasons for not to come to India. And so we as we speak, we have done close to about 10 million kilometers on electric vehicles alone in Bangalore, and this is just in 2020. If you see our petrol scale, it's much higher. We have done close to about 35 million rides, translating to about 200 million kilometers. So we understand what it takes for a scooter to run, what is the cost of maintenance, etc. So I think EV plays a very important role in whole scheme of things, where the cost of maintaining electric scooter is much easier, lesser moving parts. But the biggest challenge also is the infra. So we started working on building a battery swapping infra because no one was building it then. So we have close to about 150 partner stores where we charge batteries in Bangalore. We've done close to about 200,000 swaps. I think what is required is standardization of batteries. From our point of view, we think standardizing batteries, standardizing the battery charging units. And I think as a country, talking more about India, I think battery swapping is the key as compared to charging, because I think most of the houses or homes in India doesn't even have parking space, right? If you talk about apartments, if you talk about the way people live in India, creating charging point even in an apartment. Let's talk about the privilege where millions of them live in an apartment. It's super tough to create charging infra in an apartment or in an office complex. If you Google for any parking image in India, you can see millions of scooters, the hundreds and thousands of scooters just parked on the roads, right? So I think it's very important while we talk about fast charging, while we talk about creating turbocharging, etc. I think it's important to think about how do we actually make it happen for the common man. And common man also has a lot of questions around battery life. I was talking to someone who asked me after all the recent launches around electric vehicles. This person asked me that, is it true that we have to change batteries every 3 years? And is it true that a battery costs 50,000 every 3 years? So for a person who is used to buying a Honda Activa and fueling up the vehicle for running it and not worrying about it for a few 10 or 20 years of using that scooter, right? For him, the concept of battery and not knowing what is the life of the battery or anything of that, it's a big risk. If you want millions of them to adopt electric scooters, I think one of the smartest ways, according to me, and also a great opportunity, is to separate the battery from the equation and think of battery as a service. I think that's one thing that we have also been working on, and I think there's space for more. And this also gives a huge opportunity for taking the business from the biggest of the guys like Shell, etc., and take it to even someone like a mom and pop store. So the new age energy distributors can be a mom and pop store. So all our 150 partners are small mom and pop stores who also get to invest in batteries and be a battery distributors as such. So the way we are looking at it is, if you can separate the battery from the equation and take off the headache of battery, from the consumer, I think it becomes really scalable and adaptable for a common man as such when it comes to electric vehicles. Because charging will take its own time. So if you see any of this announcement governments are making, it's like, okay, we're creating 100 charging points, but Bangalore has 10 million two-wheelers running on the roads. So we have to talk about millions, right? How do you create charging for millions of two-wheelers if you're very serious about making EV a mainstream thing? So I think a huge opportunity in front of us, while there are challenges in terms of battery density, battery tech, battery safety, etc. All of these problems are solvable problems with enough investment and enough minds, smartest of the minds going on this. It's a solvable problem. It's not an impossible kind of problem that has to be solved for. Fortunately, there is enough demand. So wherever there is demand, wherever there is market opportunity, investment should follow. So I think we are at the right time where both money, talent, everything should go towards making mobility sustainable, right? As in, I think it's high time. We are all seeing floods. We are seeing climate change impact really, right? As in, till now we were only reading about it, but we are seeing now the unusual rains, unusual heat waves in some places like London, etc. Right? So I think we have crossed the time of talking more about climate change. I think it's time to action it, and EV also plays a very important role. While there are challenges around how do you generate energy for EV, etc., all of that, but all of these are solvable problems, and one step at a time. I think EV getting mainstream will really help for us as a country and for all of us as a society.
That's great, Vivek. I think the key takeaway of what you've said today is take the headache of battery away from the consumer. Am I correct? So
yes. Make it like fuel. He doesn't worry about the quality of fuel, whether he has to buy a tanker, where is the petrol coming from, everything, right? So that's how you have to make it a battery also, where you take the head of the energy from him, make him pay per swap, and get it given the scooter. And that should solve for most of the problems in India, at least.
Fair enough. So I think the government is not really wrong when a couple of years back they were really, so aggressive on battery swapping. In fact, this reminds me, the Move Summit, the first Move Summit, which the Niti Aayog had done at Vigyan Bhavan at Delhi. Over there, I also happened to be there, and I asked one of the panels. They were panelists from all over the world, and they were sharing their best practices on electric mobility. I asked one of them, what are your battery swapping best practices in your country? You know what they asked me in return? They asked me, what is battery swapping? So battery swapping, something more or less, back then was a very India-centric, phenomenon, which was just burgeoning. And if, Vivek, after doing millions of kilometers on electric scooters, if you're saying that we need to take the headache of battery away, then I think it really has a lot of weight in it. And I think we all, as the industry, should work on it along with the government and all the stakeholders possibly. I think now I'm totally sold out to battery swapping. So getting now Muzamil in the conversation, Muzamil, who's the India head promoter partner of One Moto India. One Moto is our latest annual partner, gold annual partner at World Auto Forum. So we would like to hear from Muzamil now. So they're just about to launch One Moto brand in India very soon, next month. So Muzamil, what are your plans for India, and where do you see the electric two-wheeler revolution panning out?
Thank you, Anuj. Thank you very much, and thank you to all panel members who have given the preview on the electronic revolution which is going on around the world, especially in India. So, when we were working from UAE and concentrating on other countries, and when we decided that we have to go to India and then start launching ourselves in India, people ask, why India? I mean, why you want to go to India? So the simple answer for me was, why not? I mean, it's a huge country, a huge amount of opportunity. The landscape gives us the edge to, go and be a prominent player in India. Having said that, what was happening in India was, there are a huge amount of players who are popping up every other day who are providing electronic bikes. So there was a scare at the same time, are we going to sustain ourselves there? Are we going to be a success model in there? But when we did these statistics in India and all those things required before we decided to get into India, what we felt was there are actually 4 or 5 players who are ruling the market, whatever the present percentage they're ruling now at the moment in EV. There's a huge scope for everyone to come in, and then what we thought was quality is what is not available in India. I mean, at the moment, there might be other players who are working on that. So we thought our plan is to provide a technology-driven bike, not only an EV bike, or I would say a bike with coming with battery, and then in 6 to 8 months you just give away on the bike. Because as my colleague from Bounce mentioned, that people will look for what is in for next 5 to 10 years. So our idea is to provide vehicles which will sustain the Indian environment, to sustain the Indian roads, at the same time give them the leverage of the luxury which the customer needs. So that's the reason we entered India. And then as everyone has been speaking about the batteries, and we believe, and I for such watch for it, that battery is going to the next fuel. It's going to be a fight everywhere on the quality of the battery, because it defines the the performance of the vehicle which is coming on the road. I've seen many complaints coming on the road. Sometimes the batteries get submerged in the water, or when you go on a mountainous terrains, it is not performing as it has to be. So that is where we come in, and One Moto is giving quality not only in terms of providing a bike which runs on the road. We make sure that the quality is maintained in terms of providing the batteries, the motor which is running, in fact the body, and each part what we want to give to the customer is sustained. So sustainability is what we are looking into that one. On the other side, Indian government, I think, based on my international experience, Anuj, having seen the regulations coming up on the EV sector, Indian policy and procedures, or I would say the overall ecosystem which is being established by the government of India and the relevant ministries is way ahead compared to other countries in the world. I can vouch for that because I've seen the rules and regulations. So it is now at the stage where they are completely mature in terms of policy making, but not in terms of implementation, which I think people will go ahead and implement it in future, and it's a possibility. The subsidies given are good. We as international brand would like to avail those subsidies provided by the government of India, and then at the same time provide a good luxury bike along with sustainable cost which every customer can afford. That's what we are planning, and then hopefully with the help of all the entities around within the government and outside the government, the only thing is that we want to establish ourselves as a quality. We are focusing on quality. We're not focusing on the volumes. We're not focusing on the sales. We're focusing on customer satisfaction. That's what we planning, and that is why we want to decide to enter the Indian market. And I've been getting very good positive vibes from all around, because I think people are looking for that. People are looking for something what they invest, the returns are there for next 15 to 20 years.
That's fantastic, Muzamil, that you're getting positive vibes from all over the place for your One Moto products, because vibes don't lie, as simple as that. So if the vibes are positive, that's clearly a message on the wall that you are welcome in the country. And, I have personally seen the One Moto products, they are pretty high on design, because, most of the products are still struggling on design when it comes to electric mobility. So I think One Moto is one of those companies which is a good, nice change. They stand out with their design. And I think, if I'm not wrong, your global CEO of One Moto UK is a designer himself. So when you have a designer CEO, so it makes all the difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then he's not a designer. He himself is, a very artistic guy who comes out with designs, latest designs, and patents all across. So that's an advantage for us. That's an advantage because he understands the market. He's the one who's designing it, and also, I just want to highlight that ours will be, I think, if not first or second, but we'll be providing 3D printing. So, which is a unique service itself while we're offering our fleet. And again, that has come from our global CEO, who is Adam. That's the advantage, and you will see a lot of designs coming up. A lot of research and development taking place in terms of design, because if you want to stand out, then you have to deliver something different. That's what we believe. And why we want to provide effortless mobility, we want to stand out in the Indian market.
Great, that's fantastic. So now coming back to Shailesh, from where we started with. So Shailesh, you had given us a nice 30,000 feet view of the entire industry. So as Muzammil himself mentioned, so battery is the new fuel. Battery data was the new oil when Geo was launched a few years back. Now battery is the new oil, if we can say that. So battery is the new fuel. And just the way Adam, the global CEO of One Moto, is himself a designer, and that shows as a refreshing difference in their products. Similarly, Shailesh, you are a technocrat. You are an expert on battery. You have so many patents on battery and storage systems all over the world. So, what are the new technologies that you are working on? What would we see in next few years, especially when it comes to the cost-conscious market of two-wheeler, three-wheeler logistics? And as Vivek mentioned, battery swapping can be the future, and we have to take the headache away of battery. So, is this there on your agenda? How do we take the headache of battery away for the consumer?
Yeah, thanks, Anuj. I think it's kind of quite evident from the expert that everyone probably agree on the common ground here is battery going to be the critical component, right? And in order for us to make battery affordable to the end consumer, there are many different ways we could do it. So swapping is definitely one of them, right? And energy as a service could be another one where a battery could be part of the system. And I recently came across this company called Easy for EV, right? And they're actually delivering energy at the doorstep. They have come up with, you don't have to swap. They will come to you like Uber vehicle. The charging station will come to you actually to power your vehicle. So there's a lot of innovation happening, and I think those are the things that once you have the local ecosystem built for the batteries, because you can't. I mean, you can definitely develop and come up with creative ideas and make it affordable. But for the long-term sustainability, and as you panelists mentioned, when you start talking about millions of vehicles, the whole landscape changes. The affordability now is multiplied by those numbers, the millions. And the problem is again multiplied there. So in order to do that, I think the domestic manufacturing is very, very important. And so is the adoption of new technologies. So coming back to your question, how we can do it and what is in the pipeline in general in industry as well as C4B. So our, the current technology itself, we believe is very, very suitable for the Indian market in next 20 years. Particularly two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and the lower battery sizes, 10, 20 kilowatt hour, as well as on the grid side, because that's one of the challenge, how the energy supply, the charging station. This technology first itself, answers a lot of questions and is very, very affordable because we have completely eliminated cobalt and nickel from it, and also solve the energy density issue. So one of the, out of two technologies out there, one is lithium iron phosphate. We call it LFP, and the other is NMC. The challenge with both of them, one obviously has good energy density but lower safety, which is NMC, and very high cost. I don't think that technology will have the potential to go, very heavy in the Indian market, just because of the cobalt involved, and cobalt has its own challenges, and nickel of course is also very costly. So you can't really drive cost below certain threshold with this technology. The other is LFP, which is taking big leap. Last 12 months have been very, very positive for LFP, but LFP is constrained by the energy density. So anything that is happening around the energy density, which is primarily connected to the range, are very positive. And what we have come up with is a technology that is kind of, best of both. So it has higher energy density than, an LFP, and lower cost, of course, as well. And that sits in between LFP and NMC in terms of energy density, but, best in the cost and the safety aspect. So we strongly believe technology, not just, I'm not trying to promote our technology, but technology like that which has the potential to address today's challenges, energy density and the cost. So and safety, of course, in smaller vehicle probably easier to control. As I think Vivek mentioned, it's not a problem that cannot be solved, right? So with that, we strongly believe, technologies that are built around components that are not exotic and can be available domestically in India. That's one criteria. And also the solid state that everyone talks about, which I personally believe it's still 8 to 10 years away from mass adoption, simply in Indian context primarily, because the cost going to be higher. And the components, some of the components like, lithium metal anode and the solid electrolyte, huge investment need to go into the supply chain side of it and the infrastructure that need to build to manufacture those components. But we are obviously running at the forefront in that technology, and we are globally the only company with a solid state and not having cobalt and nickel as well. So that I think that flavor will bring to solid state. A solid state without cobalt and nickel is going to drive the safety and the energy density as criterias, and we are hopeful that with the creative mindsets out there and extensively working on the drivetrain and the battery design and of course the overall vehicle design in India, we will have a very unique place to serve multiple verticals. So back to you, Anuj. Hope that answer your question.
Yes, absolutely. I think it was a mini crash course in different battery technologies, Shailesh. And I think you dispelled quite a lot of doubts of our community on that. And it's nice to know that you are focusing on technologies which you feel are safer, which have higher energy density, and which somewhere try to combine best of both the worlds. Because whenever a new technology is being adopted, and if suddenly you see explosions or fires happening, it impedes the adoption. People, there's a probability of people going back, like a relapse, people going back to IC, people just scraping off, no, this is not safe, or let's go back to the old stuff. Because all said and done, it's a huge disruption. There's so many services and spare parts distributions, so many businesses across the country and the world shall be affected. So many people might also have to lose their jobs, because of these technologies. And they might, and one can say that they'll have to skill themselves higher, or they can have higher skill jobs which are more in line with the need of the hour, or something like what happened when we moved from horse carriage to car. But eventually there is a shake-up, there's a shakeout, and whenever there's a shake-up and it comes down to employment, it becomes a political issue, and when it becomes a political issue, it things can happen in knee-jerk. So anyways, switching gears, so getting Dr. Dev in the conversation once again, and there is one topic that we are yet to touch, which is end of life of battery. These small our mobile phone batteries, for the last 2-3 decades might have been going to the landfills, we won't even get to know. But these batteries are big batteries, are the EV batteries. So end of life becomes a huge piece in this entire conversation. When we say green mobility, pure air, emission free, but we should not be leading to more landfill poisoning or leaching happening from landfills. Water table getting polluted, and carcinogens spreading across the entire ecosystem. So where you feel, Dr. Dev, is the end of life battery ecosystem traveling in India and the world? Are we rightly placed? What more needs to be done here?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Anuj. If you ask me to give you a straight answer, no, we are not really placed. Anyway, in India, the whole scrapping, then recycling and reclaiming has always been an issue. Whether any kind of garbage or any kind of product, domestic product, industrial product, etc., that has always been a challenge. And we have huge mountains of garbage lined up even in cities like Delhi or Mumbai, etc. This is a huge challenge. I had written a piece some time ago in a journal, and we highlighted that this is something that we need to really plan right now in this new industry which is evolving, the EV industry, rather than think about it some 10 or 15 years later and see when it comes. That's not the right approach, because then it defeats the whole purpose of sustainability and making the whole environmental safety, etc. So I am a firm believer that the OEM somehow Like in Europe, they have just EU has passed a legislation that the car maker, the vehicle maker, should be responsible for the end of the life, recycling, etc. So okay, law is something that has to come, or some kind of legislation will probably come. Government has recently come up, as we know, with the scrappage policy, a few months ago, and let's see how that pans out for the IC vehicles, etc. So same way, I think the OEMs, the vehicle makers, the battery makers will have to play a major role here in this whole ecosystem from cradle to grave, and see to it that maximum recycling or reclaiming of these materials happen. As Sailesh ji pointed out, these are all very exotic materials, rare earths, and also materials like lithium or cobalt, manganese, nickel, etc., which are today being controlled by a few countries, and we are not one of them, unfortunately. So to ensure a supply chain, a robust supply chain, we will have to really think about this and put a framework in place. I think just mindless recycling or scrapping is not the right way. Even today, if you see, we change our cell phone probably after a year or 2 years or whatever. And what happens to these cell phones? They lie in or laptops, they just lie in the desk drawer somewhere. So they don't end up, or they end up with a kabadi or a scrap dealer, and that ends up in a scientific way of recycling, reclaiming, etc. So I think battery for a vehicle battery, and these are when we get into four-wheelers, for example, the trucks or cars, these are going to be huge, big batteries. So there needs to be technology to recycle. And I think Sailesh ji would know better. I'm not an expert on that, but there are companies, particularly coming out from Scandinavian countries, etc. They have these kind of technologies to really recycle, or US. This is a serious technology in itself. We need to bring it to India, have these kind of relationships or access to that technology, so that we don't wait for that next 10 years or 20 years for that population to build, and then we will see when it comes. No, I think we need to put in the measures right now. At least the framework should be in place now, and we should be tracking it with the data right from the day the vehicle is out of the factory, through the data analytics, etc. And then we come to know, okay, what is happening to the battery end of the life. So that's my take on this.
Well, fair enough, Dr. Mukherjee. It's we appreciate your fairness and being so candid that as of now there is no really framework at the ground level, and at least we should have a framework. At least the framework should be in place before anything else. So the clock has struck 6, but still we can just do our closing remarks with and close the discussion. So moving to Mr. Nair. So Mr. Nair, your closing remarks, you feel something you need to add to the discussion, please feel free.
Yeah, sure. So Mr. Vivek has talked about the battery swapping. The challenges there is that even if you look at the battery swapping, there should be some of the batteries which needs to be away from the vehicle, and as a result, you have extra batteries which needs to be sitting not in a running condition. So who will bear the cost of that extra batteries, and who will take the ownership of battery life, which actually is a function of how it is being used. So these are all few challenges. Maybe from the business model of Vivek, probably he can actually minimize that cost. But as a common user of electric vehicle, probably the cost of the cost of your the battery charging ecosystem, battery swapping ecosystem will be much higher, and maintaining the ecosystem would be a bit difficult. But anyways, there is a standard coming up, and which defines the size of the battery, the form factor of the battery, and the connector which needs to be used in them, and what are all the safety precautions which needs to be done. But I think more or less in the technology, what would come is a hybrid model where you will have a fixed battery and maybe a battery to swap in, so that you can fast recharge the cells, and it should be a hot swappable battery. So when you talk about the challenges of hot swapping battery, you have two batteries of different charge SOCs, which actually cannot be swapped just like that. So there is methods to do that. So if that comes in, that will be the most appropriate ecosystem for the kilowatt hour which is outside of the running condition can be minimized in that model. So that's what my opinion is about the technology of swapping. Other than that, I also say that we have the handbook for charging, which is already published by NITI Aayog. Please go through that. We will get more insights into what how government is thinking about ecosystem and what way it is moving. All right, it is there in the NITI Aayog's website.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough, Mr. Nair. So, getting Vivek in the conversation, Vivek, you have done those 200K swaps. So, are they unviable, or you feel battery swapping is viable? If you want to share some business sutras on a public forum.
It makes sense for us. I don't know if it makes sense for others. We've done, and I think that's the only way it works for us, unless there's wireless charging, or where we can charge the vehicle as and when it's moving. Because cost of moving a vehicle to a parking spot, I don't know if you have seen 500 or 1,000 vehicles together. So you can imagine seeing 25, 30,000 scooters in one place. I don't think we can build charging for that. So we believe in swapping as a philosophy. So probably we are a mobility company. That's why it makes sense for us.
Okay. So it seems that if that's the only option, that you actually make it work, huh? All right. So that's great. So Muzammil, getting your parting remarks, closing remarks.
Thank you, Anuj. First, I want to mention that I'm pretty excited about the battery cells being manufactured in India in near future, as what Shailesh mentioned. That's going to make an impact. It is going to make an impact into the entire industry in terms of quality, in terms of costing of the bikes and the battery. So looking forward for that, I think you will make an impact, Shailesh, there once you're in the market. The other thing, as we conclude the session, and with what I want to highlight is that, yes, as you rightly spoke, end of life is one area which we have to focus. We fear that, this is, we want to offer the solutions or whatever the entire ecosystem of electronic vehicles or mobility is offering. It's go green technology or sustainable, but it's going to end up into some environmental issues later on, like what we do of batteries after 5 years or 10 years or whatever. So that's one area I think we should work on that. So our technology is also working. In fact, we have the feature, but we're not announcing. One more to, the battery will be regenerated as a battery, as the bike will be used. So that's one feature we are doing in R&D, and we'll be able to contribute somehow in terms of extending the battery life, so that we can make our contribution and the impact on the environment. At the same time, what we want to do is, the entire EV industry is little, young. I would say not immature, but young. And for people who want to migrate from the conventional biking or conventional vehicles to the electronic vehicles or whatever you want to call that, I think we should have some awareness programs. As responsible people who are doing a bit for the automobile industry in India, awareness campaigns, so that you gain the confidence of the customers is very important. So we, as One Motor India, will be making it mandatory for our dealers around the country to may have awareness campaigns, call in the guys and tell them what are the benefits of that. So that's what we're trying to do. And to end up with that, what we want to do is make a bit of contribution in India and provide responsible, effortless mobility for our customers. hopefully. Thank you, Anuj.
That's fantastic, Muzamil. It's very nice to know that you are already so sensitized, on this issue of end of life and on safety, and that you want to be doing these awareness programs for your dealers and the entire ecosystem. I think this shall go a long way, and it would surely pave the change. Because whenever we are changing technologies, when we are going the next level, that change should be as painless as possible, and safety for everybody has to be paramount, and we cannot allow it to poison the environment. On one side we say that, hey, it is smoke free, emission free, tailpipe emission is down to zero, but hey, if our lakes, our water bodies, our mother earth is poisoned then by heavy metals, then that's unacceptable. It's a bigger monster that we might have created. So we have to go ahead responsibly. We have to be there for the industry. After all, it's not just for the industry, it's for our families, it's for our loved ones. No RO water filter in the world can filter those heavy metals. They will eventually turn up in our gut if we don't take care of it now. So we owe it to our children, if no one else. So with that, thanks a ton, gentlemen, for making this so beautiful and so informative, so knowledgeable. And over to you, Kiran ma'am.
Well, I must say it was a very, very interesting discussion. I'm a layman. I just have a ordinary simple four-wheeler wagon, and it's a CNG car. I've seen the times when we were making a switch from petrol to CNG and the long lines for CNG, and how everyone just raved and ranted about it and cried and made a big noise that is it worth it? Is it viable? But eventually CNG did come. It had its problems. And then I was told that now we'll all have to switch to EV. And then I was told there are problems and about this battery. I didn't know what the problems were. But the way you people analyze the whole issue, analyze the problems, the pros and cons, I've got a very clear picture. But what has been most heartening is that the specialists, the experts, the top of the line experts that you are in this industry, you have so much of concern for our environment, for being so eco-friendly. And I didn't know that along with the government, parallel, your automobile industry was also working 24/7 thinking about this issue and trying to make it into a viable venture, and not just for your own profit, but for the good of people at large, for the good for the environment. I'm sure you guys will find a way, because you guys rock. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. You rock. Each one of us rocks. Thanks a ton, friends, for making the WAF Gurus Live episode 22 a great success. And we shall share the links with you very soon. This will go all over the social media, and we shall share the links soon. Thanks a ton. Thank you very much. Have a
Good
great
night,
day.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Salesh ji.
Thank you.
Good night.